My name is Dorothy Smith, and at 36 years old, I stood on that stage in Fort Mill, South Carolina, clutching my diploma, scanning the crowd for faces that never showed 5 reserved seats, sat empty, a cruel reminder of my family's absence. I told myself they'd walk in any second, but the ceremony ended and those seats never filled. Whatever had pulled them away, it wasn't me. The cheers of other graduates echoed around me, but the sting of betrayal cut deeper than any pride I should have felt. This degree was my battle for a better future, yet to them it meant nothing. The real blow landed right after my phone buzzed with a text from Mom, "We need to talk urgently." Then I saw 45 missed calls from my sister piling up like a storm about to break. Before I dive into the details of my story, I'm curious, what time is it where you're listening, and what city are you in? It's amazing to know how far a personal story like this can reach. As the missed calls kept stacking more by the minute, a mix of dread and rage surged through me, sensing whatever urgent crisis was coming would unravel everything. For the past 15 years, I've been married to James, a 38-year-old construction engineer working steady hours at a firm in Charlotte, just a short drive from our home in Fort Mill, South Carolina. We had 2 kids, Justin, our 13-year-old son, who's deep in that teenage phase where he rolls his eyes at everything I say, and Lisa, our sweet 10-year-old daughter who's starting to care more about her friends than family time. We lived in a cozy Southern-style house with a backyard perfect for summer evenings, though I barely had time to enjoy it. My job as a logistics analyst at a mid-sized shipping company kept me buried in schedules and client demands, often clocking 50-hour weeks during peak seasons. I was good at it, sharp with timelines, calm under pressure, but year after year I watched younger male colleagues leapfrog me for promotions. "You need an MBA to move up," my boss told me after my 3rd rejection. "A bachelor's isn't enough anymore." That's when I decided to go for it. The local university, Winthrop, offered night classes for working professionals. It'd take 4 years part-time, but I saw it as my ticket to senior management and a better life for us all. I didn't realize how brutal it would be juggling work kids and classes. James was supportive at first, taking the kids to soccer or helping with dinners, but I could feel his patience thinning as the years dragged on. "You're always at school," he'd mutter, scrolling through his phone. I brushed it off, thinking it was just stress, until I noticed him texting someone late at night, someone named Helen, a coworker he mentioned too casually. It wasn't proof of anything, just a gut feeling that made my stomach twist. Then there was my sister Nancy, 32 years old, the golden child who could do no wrong. She ran a flashy fashion boutique in downtown Charlotte, living in a sleek condo by the lake with her husband Joseph, a 35-year-old CEO of a tech startup. Nancy was the family star mom and dad who lived in Texas, never missed her store openings or fancy brunches, but they'd skip my parent-teacher conferences or work events without a second thought. "Nancy's just more fun," Mom once said, as if my responsibilities made me less worthy. Joseph wasn't much better, always boasting about his startup, though I'd overheard whispers at a family dinner about investors pulling out, hinting at cracks in his perfect image. Those 4 years I poured everything into that degree. I'd wake up at dawn to pack lunches, rush through work, then drag myself to class 3 nights a week. Weekends were spent locked in our home office, ignoring the kids' complaints. "Mom's always busy," Justin grumbled once to James, loud enough for me to hear. It stung, but I told myself it was temporary, for our future, for stability, maybe even that beach vacation Lisa kept dreaming about. But the distance grew. James started taking the kids to community events without me, and I caught more of those late-night texts to Helen. Nothing explicit, just enough to make me question if I was losing him. One night about a year before graduation, I couldn't sleep. James was downstairs, phone glowing in the dark. I crept closer and heard him laugh softly, saying, "Helen, you're too much." My heart raced, not enough to confront him, but enough to plant a seed of doubt that grew with every late-night buzz of his phone. The grind of those 4 years was relentless. I'd wake up at 5 a.m. to make breakfast and pack lunches for Justin and Lisa, then head to my logistics job in Fort Mill, juggling client calls and shipment schedules for 9 hours. 3 nights a week, I'd race to Winthrop University for classes from 6 to 9 p.m., dragging myself home to a sink full of dishes and kids' homework waiting. Weekends weren't for relaxing. I'd lock myself in the study buried in textbooks, while James took Justin and Lisa to soccer games or birthday parties. "Mom's always working," Justin muttered once loud enough to pierce through the closed door. Lisa would chime in, "Why can't you come with us, Mom?" Their words hit hard, but I swallowed the guilt, telling myself this was for them, for a better future, maybe a bigger house or that beach trip they wanted. But the truth was, I was fading from their lives. James wasn't much help either. He'd cook dinner sometimes, but I could feel his frustration growing. "When's this degree gonna be done, Dorothy?" He'd ask, his voice sharp. I'd catch him texting late at night, probably Helen again, and my stomach would churn. I never confronted him, too tired, too focused, but the doubt was a constant weight. Meanwhile, my sister Nancy, 32 years old, was the family's shining star. She ran a trendy fashion boutique in Charlotte, and our parents living in Texas never missed her event store launches, charity galas, you name it. My work presentations, my late-night study sessions. They'd make excuses. "Nancy's got a big opening," Mom said once, as if my degree was just a hobby. It burned knowing I was the responsible one, yet somehow less important. Then there was Betty, Nancy's old friend, 34 years old, who'd become some big-shot interior designer in Atlanta. She showed up at a family dinner last year, all smiles and expensive heels, bragging about her latest project on a video call with Nancy. "You should see my new loft," Betty said, her voice dripping with confidence. Nancy beamed, but I felt small, my work and studies paling in comparison. Betty's success seemed to fuel Nancy's need to outshine me, like they were in some unspoken competition I wasn't invited to. It wasn't just them. James barely hid his admiration for Betty, which only made my suspicions about Helen worse. 6 months before graduation, I started planning the big day. I wanted it to be perfect, a moment for Justin and Lisa to see their mom succeed, to know women could chase dreams no matter what. I called Mom and Dad in Texas, giving them the date for the Winthrop ceremony. "We'll try, sweetie," Mom said, her tone vague like always. I booked 5 tickets, James, Justin, Lisa, Mom, Dad, and reserved a table at a fancy Italian place in Charlotte Bella Vista for a celebration dinner. It cost $250, but it was worth it for a once-in-a-lifetime moment. I even splurged on a navy dress with subtle embroidery, something elegant yet simple, perfect for the stage and dinner. Lisa saw me try it on and hugged me. "You look like a princess, Mom," she said, her eyes wide. For a second, I felt like maybe it would all come together, but trouble was brewing. A month before the ceremony, I was at the grocery store when Mrs. Karen, our 65-year-old neighbor who always seemed to know everyone's business, pulled me aside. "Dorothy, I overheard something at the community center," she whispered, her eyes gleaming with gossip. "Your sister's husband, Joseph, was on the phone sounding stressed. Something about investors pulling out of his startup, big money trouble." I froze. Joseph, the cocky CEO who acted like he owned the world, was in trouble. It didn't add up. Nancy was always bragging about his success. Mrs. Karen leaned closer. He was talking about some big event to impress people. Sounded desperate. My mind raced. Was Nancy planning something to cover up Joseph's mess? I thanked Mrs. Karen, my heart pounding with a mix of worry and suspicion, wondering what kind of game my sister was playing. 3 weeks before my graduation, my sister Nancy dropped the bombshell. "I'm throwing a big barbecue at my place in Charlotte," she said over the phone, her voice all fake cheer. "Joseph's got this new outdoor setup, and we're inviting everyone, Mom, Dad, the kids, James." You should come after your thing. My jaw tightened. Nancy, that's my graduation day, I said, trying to stay calm. I told you months ago. It's at Winthrop 2 p.m. There was a pause, then her breezy laugh. Oh, right, forgot. But it's just a ceremony, Dorothy. You already did the hard part. Come by after. I could hear Joseph in the background talking loudly about investors. Mrs. Karen's words echoed in my head. His startup was in trouble. This barbecue wasn't just a party. It was a desperate show to keep up appearances, maybe to schmooze some big money. I called Mom and Dad in Texas, hoping they'd see sense. Nancy's barbecue is the same day as my graduation, I said. You're coming to mine, right? Mom hesitated. Well, honey, they're flying us in, and it's been ages since we saw Nancy's new place. Can't you do both? I was stunned. It's in Fort Mill, Mom, not next door. The ceremony's 3 hours, and we've got dinner plans after. Dad chimed in. Joseph's got clients coming. It's a big deal for them. I hung up my hands, shaking. My own parents were choosing Nancy's cover-up party over my milestone. Then came James. I confronted him that night in our kitchen, dishes piled high from another rushed dinner. You're not seriously taking the kids to Nancy's barbecue instead of my graduation, are you? I asked. James avoided my eyes, chopping vegetables with too much force. Dorothy, it's a pool party. Justin and Lisa are begging to go. Their cousins will be there. They'll be bored stiff at your ceremony. My voice rose. Bored? This is about showing them hard work pays off, James. 4 years of me missing their games, their bedtimes for us. He sighed. Nancy called me. Said it'd mean a lot to her and Joseph. I didn't think it was a big deal. Nancy called him. That manipulative edge in her voice must have worked its magic, pulling James and the kids away from me. Justin overheard us and piped up, I don't want to sit through a dumb ceremony, Mom. The pool's way more fun. Lisa nodded, her eyes wide. My friend Katie's going too. I felt my heart crack. My own kids siding with their dad and Nancy's flashy party. I went to bed alone that night, James on the couch, the weight of their betrayal settling like a stone in my chest. The morning of graduation, I woke up to silence. No kids laughing, no James making coffee. A note on the counter read, took Justin and Lisa to Nancy's early to help set up. Congrats, honey. Congrats, honey, like an afterthought. I crumpled the note, my hands trembling as I made coffee alone. I had a hair appointment at 10, makeup at 11, and needed to be at Winthrop by 1 p.m. for lineup. I slipped into my navy dress, the one Lisa called princess-like, and tried to feel something other than dread. At the ceremony, I walked across the stage alone, Dorothy Smith, master of logistics, with honors ringing in my ears to polite applause. No cheers, no family. Just strangers clapping for a stranger. As I stepped off, my phone buzzed again, Mom's text, then Nancy's 45 missed calls, now up to 50. My heart raced. Something was wrong. I called my coworker Donna, my closest ally at the logistics firm who'd promised to meet me after the ceremony. Dorothy, where are you? She asked, her voice urgent. I'm at Winthrop, just finished. What's going on? I said, clutching the phone. I got a call from your neighbor, Mrs. Karen. Something happened at Nancy's. You need to get to the hospital now. Donna's tone shifted sharp with conviction. Whatever went down, Dorothy, this is your moment. They've pushed you aside too long. Get ready to confront them hard. My blood boiled, her words igniting a fire I hadn't felt before. Whatever waited at that hospital, it was going to break open every secret they thought they could hide. I raced to Fort Mill Memorial Hospital, my navy dress clinging to me, hair falling loose from its careful styling. The 15-minute drive from Winthrop felt like an eternity, my mind spinning with worst-case scenarios. Was Justin okay? Lisa had something happened at Nancy's barbecue. I parked in the chaotic emergency lot and rushed inside, heels clicking on the linoleum. At the reception desk, I gave Justin's name, my voice shaking. Bay 6, the nurse said, pointing down the hall. I pulled back the curtain and froze. There was Justin, my 13-year-old son, lying on a bed with his right arm in a splint, his face pale and tear-streaked. Lisa sat beside him, her 10-year-old eyes wide with fear. Around them stood James' mom, Dad Nancy, and Joseph, their faces a mix of guilt and tension. A doctor, Dr. Sandra, was reviewing x-rays on a screen. Mom Justin called his voice small like he was 5 again. I rushed to his side, maternal instinct drowning out the rage for a moment. "I'm here, kiddo," I said, smoothing his hair. "What happened, Dr. Sandra?" The attending physician turned to me. "Justin has a severe arm fracture and a mild concussion from a fall playing basketball at the barbecue. He's stable, but will need a cast and observation." I nodded, relief mixing with fury as I looked at James. "How did this happen?" I demanded. He wouldn't meet my eyes. He was messing around with his cousins, showing off. Slipped on the court. Lisa piped up. "It was scary, Mom. He fell so hard. The guilt in the room was palpable. Everyone knew they'd chosen a party over me, and now my son was hurt." I turned to Nancy and Joseph standing awkwardly by the curtain. "This happened at your barbecue," I said, my voice low but sharp. "The one you insisted everyone attend instead of my graduation." Nancy opened her mouth, but Joseph cut in, his CEO arrogance dripping. "Let's not make this about you, Dorothy. It was an accident." I laughed, a bitter sound. "An accident at your desperate attempt to save your failing startup. Mrs. Karen told me about your investor troubles, Joseph. That barbecue wasn't just a party, was it?" Their faces paled, confirming every suspicion. Mom stepped forward, her voice pleading. "Dorothy, please. This isn't the time." "When is the time, Mom?" I snapped. "When I'm invisible again. 4 years I sacrificed for that degree, and none of you, not my husband, my kids, my parents, could spare one afternoon." James reached for my arm, but I pulled away, spotting his phone on the chair. The screen lit up with a new message from Helen Hope. "You're okay. Call me." My blood boiled. Still texting Helen, James. I grabbed the phone, scrolling through flirty messages, nothing explicit but enough to confirm my fears. "You chose a barbecue over me, and now this." I held up the phone, my voice trembling with rage. Nancy tried to deflect. "You're overreacting, Dorothy. It's just a ceremony." The same dismissive tone she'd used my whole life, always the golden child. Before I could respond, Dr. Sandra pulled me aside, her expression serious. "Mrs. Smith, I need to speak with you privately about something unrelated." In a quiet corner, she lowered her voice. "I shouldn't say this, but since your family, I treated Nancy last year. She had a procedure, a termination. Joseph doesn't know. It's in her psych records she was conflicted." My jaw dropped. Nancy, the perfect sister, had a secret this big. It was a weapon I never expected, a crack in her flawless facade. I thanked Dr. Sandra, my mind racing with how to use this. As I returned to the bay, my phone buzzed. Mrs. Karen, our nosy neighbor. "Dorothy, I overheard James talking to that Helen woman outside your house last week," she whispered. Sounded way too cozy. I clenched my fist, the pieces falling into place. Then Donna arrived, her presence a lifeline. "Dorothy, you don't deserve this," she said, her eyes fierce. "They've walked over you too long. Use what you know, make them face it." I nodded, her words fueling my resolve. That's when the final twist hit. Donna leaned in, her voice barely audible. "Helen's not your enemy. She's been feeding me info on James for weeks at my request. I asked her to get close to see how far he'd go. She's your spy, Dorothy." My head spun. Helen, the woman I'd suspected was working for me. The messages were bait proof of James's disloyalty. I looked at my family, Nancy's fake concern, Joseph's arrogance, Mom and Dad's weak excuses, James's guilt. Justin's injury was the breaking point, but this secret about Nancy and Helen's betrayal gave me power I'd never had before. I stepped back into the bay, my voice steady despite the storm inside. "Nancy, we need to talk alone," I said, locking eyes with her. She flinched, sensing something dangerous. I had her secret and I was ready to turn the tables. This wasn't just about Justin's accident anymore. It was about every betrayal, every dismissal, and I was done being the invisible one. Back at the hospital, I pulled Nancy aside, my voice cold as steel. "We need to talk now." Her eyes darted, sensing danger, but she followed me to a quiet hallway. "I know about your procedure last year," I said, watching her face drain of color. "The one Joseph doesn't know about." Dr. Sandra let it slip. Nancy's perfect composure cracked, her hands trembling. "You wouldn't dare tell him," she whispered, but I held her gaze. "I don't want your fake apologies, Nancy. I want you to feel what it's like to be invisible, to have your life dismissed." I didn't need to say more. She knew I held the power to unravel her marriage, her image. But revenge wasn't about destroying her. It was about reclaiming my worth. "This family's done using me," I said, walking away, leaving her frozen. Joseph cornered me later, his usual arrogance softened. "Dorothy, I heard you're good with logistics. My startup's in trouble, investors are bailing. Partner with me and we can save it." I almost laughed. The man who'd enabled Nancy's betrayal thought I'd help him now. "No, Joseph," I said firmly. "I'm done cleaning up your messes." His face fell, and I felt a surge of freedom. Saying no was my first step to breaking free. The next week was a blur of hard choices. I met with a lawyer recommended by Mrs. Karen, our nosy but loyal neighbor. Filing for divorce from James was gut-wrenching but necessary. Those flirty texts with Helen, exposed by her as my spy, were the final nail in a marriage already crumbling under his neglect. "I made a mistake," James pleaded, but his words rang hollow. "You chose a barbecue over my life's work." I said, my voice steady. "You don't get to choose me now." I moved out, renting a small apartment in Fort Mill with a view of the park, a fresh start for me and the kids. Justin and Lisa were torn, at first drawn to their dad's promises of fun weekends. But during the custody hearing, I sat them down. "I've spent years building a better life for us," I told them, my hands on theirs. "Your dad and aunt chose a party over me, over you getting hurt. I need you to know I'll always show up for you." Lisa's eyes welled up, and Justin, usually so defiant, nodded. "We want to stay with you, Mom," he said. The judge, seeing the hospital reports and James's absence at my graduation, granted me primary custody. It wasn't about winning, it was about them understanding what family should mean. Betty, Nancy's old friend, called a month later, bragging about her latest design project. "You should have seen my gala in Atlanta," she said, oblivious to my pain. But instead of shrinking, I used her success to fuel my own resolve. "Congrats, Betty," I said coolly. "I'm building something better on my terms." Her silence told me she got the message. I wasn't competing anymore. I was done measuring myself against others. Mom and Dad sent a long email full of excuses about supporting Nancy's big moment. I didn't reply. Instead, I sent a single message: "I'm done being second to her. Don't contact me until you see me as equal." Cutting them off hurt, but it was like shedding a weight I'd carried too long. Nancy tried calling, leaving voicemails about family unity, but I blocked her number. Their betrayal at my graduation, Justin's injury, their dismissal of my sacrifices, it was enough. My promotion to senior logistics analyst came through a bigger office and a raise that let me breathe easier. Mrs. Karen stopped by with a housewarming plant for my new place. "You're stronger than they ever gave you credit for," she said, her eyes kind. I smiled, knowing she'd been more family than my own blood. Looking back, I learned a hard truth. Self-respect matters more than any family tie if they don't value your sacrifices. I poured 4 years into that degree for us, but they chose a barbecue, a lie, to prop up Nancy's crumbling world. My advice: don't let anyone, family or not, make you feel small for chasing your dreams. If they can't show up for you, walk away. Your worth comes from within, and that's the freedom I found. Thanks for listening to my story. If it hit home, hit that subscribe button and share your own experience in the comments. Have you ever had to stand up to family who let you down? I'd love to hear.